Where legends breathe again. Eldmyth. Across the silent deserts of forgotten kingdoms, in the ruins where time itself has turned to dust, witnesses once spoke of a creature made not of flesh, but of fire, rebirth, and eternity, a being that did not fear death because death was only the beginning. This is the phoenix, a divine flame that rises when all else falls, a living symbol of renewal, resurrection, and cosmic balance. But how much of its legend is truth? And how much is the wishful myth of civilizations craving hope? Tonight, we follow the burning trail, left behind by the immortal bird of fire, to uncover every secret it ever carried in its wings. The air shimmers with an ancient heat, a warmth that predates the very sun. In the silent, sacred spaces between worlds, a legend breathes. It is a creature woven not merely from flesh and feather, but from the very fabric of cyclical time, a celestial paradox of death and rebirth. We speak of the phoenix, a being whose name is whispered on the winds of forgotten deserts and etched into the ashes of cosmic furnaces. To understand it is to attempt to hold a flame in your palm. You are left not with a thing, but with the memory of its light and the certainty of its heat. Its story is not a linear chronicle, but a spiral, an eternal return to a single, glorious, and terrifying moment of self-immolation. Imagine the profound silence that follows the final note of a symphony, a silence so complete it feels like a presence itself. From that void, a single, golden ember pulses. It is a heartbeat in the dark, a promise whispered to the stars. The first sign of the phoenix is often not a sight, but a feeling, a sudden, inexplicable warmth in a frozen forest, a wave of solace washing over a grieving soul, or a surge of creative fire in the mind of an artist. It is the embodiment of potential, the unformed idea hovering at the edge of consciousness. Its call is not a sound that travels through the air, but one that resonates within the spirit, a low, melodic thrum that vibrates in the marrow of your bones, speaking of ages past and renewals yet to come. Its wings, when they unfurl, do not merely displace air. They stir the currents of fate, rustling the pages of history yet unwritten. To witness the phoenix is to stand at the precipice of eternity and gaze into the heart of a benevolent supernova. Our journey into the ember begins not with a single culture, but with a chorus of them, a global tapestry of belief that points to a shared, primal understanding of this cyclical wonder. The most ancient and detailed records emerge from the sun-scorched sands of Egypt, where it was known as the Bennu. This celestial heron, a being of self-creation, was worshipped in Heliopolis as the living heart of the sun god Ra. It was said to alight upon the sacred Benben stone, the primordial mound that rose from the waters of chaos, its cry marking the beginning of time itself. The Egyptians saw in the Bennu the promise of resurrection and the unending cycle of the Nile's flood and retreat, a direct correlation between the creature's fate and the sustenance of their civilization. Far to the east, in the mystical landscapes of China, the Fenghuang arose not as a singular entity, but as a harmonious union of yin and yang, the male Feng and the female Huang. This magnificent bird, often paired with the dragon, symbolized supreme virtue, grace, and the arrival of a prosperous new era. Its body was a living map of the cosmos, the head representing the sky, the eyes the sun, the back the moon, its wings the wind, and its feet the earth. It was an omen of perfect harmony, appearing only in times of unparalleled peace and justice, a stark contrast to the Western focus on solitary rebirth. The Greeks, with their gift for narrative, gave us the name we know best, phoenix, derived from their word for the vibrant crimson color. Herodotus, the historian, recounted tales of this Arabian bird journeying to Egypt every 500 years, carrying its deceased parent encased in a ball of myrrh to deposit in the temple of the sun. Each civilization, from the Hindu Garuda to the Persian Simurgh, projected its deepest hopes for renewal onto this magnificent creature, encoding their understanding of life, death, and the possibility of a glorious return into its mythic biology. With such potent symbolism woven into its very being, human encounters with the phoenix were never casual affairs. They were momentous, sacred, and often fraught with ritualistic precision. Unlike creatures of folklore that demanded wards and charms for protection, the phoenix inspired a different kind of practice, a yearning for communion, a hope to witness its glorious cycle, and to perhaps glean a fragment of its transformative power. In ancient Arabia, where the legend was said to have its earthly roots, nomadic tribes would speak of a sacred plateau, a place of obsidian rocks and whispering winds. Upon this plateau, once every few centuries, the most devout and pure of heart would gather. They would not come with weapons or traps, but with offerings of the most aromatic spices, cinnamon, frankincense, and myrrh, which they believed were the very building blocks the phoenix used to construct its funeral pyre. The air would be thick with scent and prayer, a collective human hope rising like heat haze under the desert stars. The ritual was one of patient, silent vigil. To speak, it was believed, would scatter the nascent energies gathering for the rebirth. The emotional tension was palpable, a mixture of profound reverence and a barely suppressed, primal fear. They were not afraid the phoenix would harm them, but that their own mortal imperfection would cause it to fail, to choose another, more worthy place for its transformation. The climax of this vigil was not a battle, but a benediction. If the phoenix deemed the gathering worthy, it would appear not as a threat, but as a fleeting, warm radiance, a sense of immense, peaceful acceptance that would wash over the participants, a feeling they would carry as a sacred secret for the rest of their days, a story to be passed down through generations in hushed, awe-filled tones. One of the most poignant and enduring myths surrounding the phoenix comes not from the public rituals of the desert, but from the private grief of a solitary soul. The tale is set in a forgotten kingdom nestled in a valley of eternal spring, a place where the flowers never wilted and the streams sang constant melodies. The queen of this land, Eliana, was beloved, her life a tapestry of kindness and wisdom. But a shadow fell upon the realm when a wasting sickness, silent and cold, settled in her lungs. The court physicians were powerless. Their potions and poultices were as effective as whispers against a gale. As Eliana faded, the very valley seemed to mourn, the vibrant colors dimmed, and the cheerful streams ran slow and quiet. In her final moments, she asked to be taken to the Sunstone, a monolithic, warm menhir that stood in the palace gardens, believed to be a touchstone for celestial energies. As she lay her hand upon the sun-warmed stone, taking her last, ragged breath, a single tear fell from her cheek and sizzled upon the rock. From the heavens, a streak of fire descended. It was the phoenix, drawn not by ritual but by the purity of profound sorrow. It did not land but circled once above the queen's still form, its mournful cry echoing through the silent valley. Then it plunged, not as an attack, but as a merger, its fiery essence enveloping Eliana in a cocoon of gentle, golden flame. The court watched, breathless, as the flames did not consume but transformed. When the fire receded, Eliana was gone. In her place, from the ashes that swirled not with the gray of death but with the gold of promise, a new phoenix rose, its eyes holding the same deep wisdom as the departed queen. It let out a triumphant call, and as the sound washed over the land, the flowers burst into unprecedented bloom, and the streams laughed with renewed vigor. The queen was gone, but her essence had become part of the eternal cycle, a guardian forever bound to the concept of renewal, her sacrifice ensuring the land's perpetual vitality. Yet the path of the phoenix is not always one of serene acceptance and royal transformation. There exists a darker, more desperate strand of myth, born from human avarice and the fatal desire to possess immortality. This is the legend of the Ash Thief. It tells of a powerful and paranoid emperor, Lord Caelan, who ruled a vast, mountainous empire with an iron fist. He had conquered every neighboring kingdom and possessed treasures beyond imagining, but his one gnawing fear was the inevitability of his own death. His court sorcerers, delving into forbidden lore, uncovered a cryptic text suggesting that a single feather, plucked from a phoenix at the precise moment of its rebirth, could grant the possessor a fraction of its eternal life. For decades, Kalen sent his most skilled hunters and trackers to the remote, volcanic spires where the phoenix was rumored to nest. Many never returned. Those who did spoke only of an overwhelming, sacred presence that turned their weapons to dust and their ambition to ash. But Kalen's obsession only grew. He finally embarked on the quest himself, clad in armor forged from obsidian to withstand the heat, leading a legion of his most loyal and silent warriors. After a year of searching, they found it, a secluded caldera where the air itself tasted of cinnamon and ozone, and in the center, a nest of smoldering white-hot stones. And there, the phoenix was building its pyre, its movements slow, deliberate, and heavy with the weight of its impending end. The emperor watched, his heart a cold stone in his chest, as the creature began to sing its death song, a melody of such profound beauty and sorrow that it made his warriors weep and drop to their knees. But Kalen felt nothing. As the first flames erupted from the phoenix's breast, he saw his chance. As the phoenix's song reached its crescendo, a symphony of crackling flame and ethereal notes, Lord Kalen burst from his hiding place. He ignored the searing heat that blistered the paint on his obsidian armor and the tears of his men. His eyes were locked on his prize, a single, primary flight feather, blazing with incandescent light at the very tip of the phoenix's wing. With a gauntleted hand, he lunged. The moment his fingers closed around the feather, a shockwave of silent energy erupted from the heart of the pyre. The beautiful, ordered flames turned chaotic and violent, lashing out like wounded serpents. The emperor screamed, not in pain, but in shock, as the feather in his grasp did not come loose. Instead, it crumbled into a cascade of pure, white-hot energy that traveled up his arm, consuming the armor, then his flesh, then his very bones. He did not burn. He unraveled, his form dissolving into a cloud of gray, inert ash that was instantly scattered by the now furious winds of the caldera. His warriors, shielded by their genuine, awestruck fear, were untouched. The phoenix, in its final act of self-immolation, did not punish them. It simply completed its cycle. The flames burned brighter, purer, until they collapsed inward upon themselves, leaving behind a mound of glowing cinders. From it, the newborn phoenix emerged, smaller, but its eyes blazing with ancient knowledge. It looked upon the terrified warriors not with anger, but with a profound, cosmic pity. Then it took flight, leaving the men alone in the suddenly silent mountains, the lesson seared into their souls, that some cycles are sacred, and that the desire to cheat death can be the very thing that invites a far more final and meaningless end. The empire of Kalen, built on conquest and fear, crumbled within a generation, remembered only as a cautionary tale whispered alongside the legend of the phoenix. Not all human-phoenix interactions were born of greed. Some were alliances of necessity, forging bonds between mortal and mythic that would echo through the ages. One such legend tells of a great, creeping blight that threatened an entire continent, a supernatural decay that leached color and life from the land, leaving behind a gray, silent waste. The forests turned to brittle sticks, the rivers to sluggish sludge, and a deep despair settled over the people. An order of druids, the keepers of the verdant word, knew that no mortal magic could counter this existential threat. Their oldest prophecies spoke of a solar pact, a chance to beseech the phoenix, whose essence was the antithesis of such decay, to cleanse the world. The journey of their leader, a young woman named Alara, was a harrowing pilgrimage through the dying world. She traveled for months, guided only by the faint, warm sensation of a talisman she carried, a fossilized resin that held a single, microscopic barb of a phoenix feather, a relic from an age long past. It led her to the highest peak, a place where the earth met the sky, where the air was so thin it felt like crystal. There she did not find a nest, but a convergence, a permanent, gentle flame hovering in midair, a stable anchor point in the phoenix's eternal cycle. Alara did not speak her plea aloud. Instead, she opened her mind, projecting images of the withering forests, the starving children, the silent birds. She offered not spices or gold, but her own unwavering hope, a pure, selfless desire to heal. The flame pulsed in response. It did not speak in words, but in concepts, a wave of understanding that washed over her, carrying both the immense weight of the task and the certainty of its success. The flame then detached from its anchor, enveloping her, not to consume but to empower. Empowered by the phoenix's essence, Alara became a living conduit of its restorative fire. She did not walk back down the mountain. She descended like a falling star, a streak of warm, golden light against the gray landscape. Where her feet touched the blighted earth, the ground did not merely heal. It erupted in a superbloom of unprecedented vitality. Grasses grew waist-high in moments, trees burst forth from barren soil, their leaves a vibrant, impossible green. The gray decay recoiled from her presence, hissing like a retreating tide. She moved through the heart of the continent, a solitary figure at the center of a storm of life, her body glowing with the borrowed fire of the cosmos. The phoenix itself flew high above, a distant, brilliant sun, its wings shedding embers that fell like benevolent rain, each one sprouting into a flower or a sapling upon impact. The process was not instantaneous. It was a great, slow wave of healing that rolled outwards from her path for weeks. When the last vestige of the blight was purged from the deepest valley, the light within Alara faded. She collapsed, exhausted but whole, on the banks of a now sparkling river. The phoenix circled once overhead, its form beginning to glow with the familiar, building intensity of its own cycle. It had expended a tremendous amount of its life force to achieve this great work. With a final, grateful cry that echoed in the now teeming forests, it burst into a final, glorious flame, its ashes scattering on the wind to fertilize the world it had just saved. A new phoenix would be born elsewhere in time, but the people of that continent never forgot the sacrifice. They built no statues to Alara or the phoenix, for the entire, rejuvenated land was their monument, a living testament to the alliance between determined mortal hope and benevolent, cyclical power. The symbolism of the phoenix is as malleable and enduring as the creature itself, evolving through the centuries to reflect the changing hopes and fears of humanity. In early Christian art, it became a powerful allegory for Christ's resurrection, a natural symbol of triumph over death that required no explanation for a populace steeped in its myth. Alchemists of the Middle Ages saw in its cycle of death and rebirth the perfect metaphor for their magnum opus, the process of breaking down base matter in the crucible to purify it into the philosopher's stone, the ultimate symbol of perfection and immortality. The phoenix was the rubedo, the reddening, the final stage of the alchemical process where the divine spirit is fully integrated and the great work is complete. Its image was secretly etched into manuscripts and laboratory glassware, a constant reminder that true transformation requires a passage through the fire. In the modern era, the phoenix has been adopted by popular culture with relentless enthusiasm. It soars through the pages of fantasy novels, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. It appears in blockbuster films, its CGI-rendered wings spanning IMAX screens, its rebirth sequence a spectacle of light and sound. In video games, it is often a powerful summon or an elusive endgame boss, its feathers prized crafting components. Its name adorns corporations, space programs, and charitable foundations, all seeking to associate themselves with the ideas of innovation, recovery, and rising anew from adversity. The creature has been psychoanalyzed, with Carl Jung himself seeing it as a quintessential archetype of the self, representing the psyche's innate drive toward wholeness and integration through the process of individuation. From a feared and revered god-beast to a therapeutic symbol of personal growth, the phoenix's journey through human consciousness is as fascinating as any of its mythical flights. And so, we return to the silence from which we began, the silence that is not an absence, but a potential. The phoenix endures not because we have proven its biological existence, but because we feel its truth inscribed in the very rhythm of our world. We see it in the forest that regrows after a devastating wildfire, the green shoots defiantly pushing through the charred soil. We feel it in the resilience of the human spirit, our capacity to rebuild our lives from the ashes of personal tragedy, often emerging stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than before. It is the promise embedded in the cold grip of winter that it must, inevitably, give way to the thaw of spring. The phoenix is the ultimate metaphor for hope, not a naive, passive hope, but an active, fiery conviction that endings are merely disguised beginnings. It teaches us that destruction and creation are two sides of the same coin, that to be consumed by the fires of experience is not always a fate to be feared, but sometimes a necessary passage to a more enlightened state. It asks us to look upon the ashes of our failures, our losses, and our broken dreams, and to see not the end of the story, but the fertile ground from which a new one will be written. The legend assures us that nothing beautiful is ever truly lost. It is only waiting for the right moment to be reborn in a new, perhaps even more brilliant form. As the stars turn and the galaxies spiral, the cycle continues, an eternal dance of ember and ash, of silence and song. Another legend fades, but the next awaits. Like this video, subscribe and continue the journey through myths.